Some basic rules for using Excel formulas. Before we really get into the subject, I want you to review these rules and keep them in mind always, because these are the rules that are going to guarantee that you'll be successful in your Excel formulas. If you don't follow these rules, you're eventually going to have problems, and those problems can be pretty big, trust me. Okay, first rule for using Excel formulas. Keep it simple. Okay, and I'm going to say that again. Keep it simple. If you can't understand it, you're doing it wrong. In other words, if you have a formula that's so long and so hard to understand that even you don't know what you're doing it wrong. Even if it seems to give you the right result, think about it. There's no way that you can understand what it is you're doing. And if you can't understand it, there's no way that you can check it. There's no way that you can tell if it's giving you a right result or a wrong result. So if you can't understand it, you're doing it wrong. There's very few cases in Excel in which you really need a complicated solution. Most of the time in Excel, you can solve things in a simple manner, in the simplest manner possible that anyone can understand. I've seen way too many spreadsheets in Excel where people simply do formulas on top of formulas, cell references on top of references. One reference jumps to another sheet, that sheet jumps to another sheet, and you have an endless chain of references and formulas, and the entire thing becomes an awful mess that's absolutely impossible to understand. So the number one rule and the number one secret to using Excel formulas is to keep it simple. Okay, don't make things more complicated than you need to. Just because Excel has 1 million rows and I don't know 60 something thousand columns doesn't mean that your worksheet needs to be that big. Okay? Segment your data, segment your calculations, use these tabs, use different files, keep your data in order and keep it simple and easy to understand. That's the number one rule for using Excel. Second rule for using Excel formulas, all roads lead to Rome. There's no right way and there's no wrong way. There's only recommended ways and not so recommended ways. As I said, if you can't understand it, that's probably not a recommended way to go about it. But you might solve your problems in Excel one way and another person might solve their problems in another way. You might use mathematical operations, another person might use a formula, they might use one of the built-in functions in Excel. There's really no right way or wrong way. As long as you're getting a result that's what you're expecting, and as long as you can understand what Excel is doing, it's probably a right way to solve the problem. So there's no one universal solution. There's only recommended ways of solving things in Excel. But the possibilities for solving problems in Excel are infinite, and you should always keep that in mind. There's no reason why two people should have the same identical solution to a problem in Excel. Third rule, when in doubt, check the help file or Google it. I've seen way too many people get stuck on a spreadsheet and they say, well, I can't solve this. There's an error that's here and I can't trace it and I can't figure out what's going on. The first thing I ask them, have you tried Googling it? And it turns out they put in a search in Google for whatever error they're getting, and the solution pops right up. Someone solved it 3 years ago, and it's been sitting there all the time, and all they needed to do was Google it or look in the Excel help file, and they solved their problem in 3 seconds. So when in doubt, check the help file or Google it. And number 4, another one of those critical rules in Excel, always double check your work. Okay, you always need to double check your work in Excel when you're doing a spreadsheet. Okay? Always check the sums, always check that your rows and column totals are correct. Always check that your sums cover the entire range of cells that you want to sum, things like that. There's lots of little mathematical checks that you can do on your spreadsheets, and accountants are really good at this. If you want some of those simple mathematical checks, well, check with the accountants at your local company. They'll be more than happy to give you a couple of those tips on how to check mathematical and financial operations on your spreadsheets. But always double check your work. I mean, even if you do something as simple as taking a calculator and doing a couple sums, a couple of subtractions, maybe a division and multiplication here, to see that the final result you're getting is more or less what you're expecting, that's absolutely critical when you're doing Excel spreadsheets. Like I said a few minutes ago, Excel spreadsheets can get really complicated really fast, and there's really very little way of keeping track of what every single cell in your spreadsheet is doing. That means that it's really easy for an error to get put into the results somewhere, and then the formulas drag that error around and they change it around and they make it bigger and they make it smaller, and in the end you get a result which is probably incorrect, but it looks like it's correct up front. The only way to really figure out whether it's right or wrong is to double check your work. And you need to figure out the way to double check your work depending on what you're doing. It might be quickly checking it with a calculator. It might be comparing to previous spreadsheets that you've made and the previous results you've obtained, stuff like that. But never simply believe what Excel tells you, because that's the way you get into really big trouble. Okay? If you simply say, well, Excel says it, so it's got to be right, you're going to get into trouble. And really, you don't have to take my word for it. Ask JP Morgan. In 2012, they lost $6 billion because someone messed up a formula on a spreadsheet and no one bothered to double check their work. Okay, that's something called the London Whale, and it got a whole lot of people into a whole lot of trouble, and it was simply due to the fact that someone had put in a formula wrong in an Excel spreadsheet. So always double check your work as many times as you need to be sure that you're getting the right result. Okay? Those are 4 simple rules for Excel formulas that are going to help you avoid lots of headaches that you can get in Excel when you're working with formulas and as your worksheets get bigger and bigger and more complex. Thanks for watching this video tutorial. If you liked the video, be sure to subscribe to our channel and to visit our website, cubicleoverlords.com, for more instructional videos like this one.